All right, so how's everyone? How's your weekend? Good, quick? Really? Yeah, all right. It rained. It rained last night everywhere, even out there. It did? Yeah. How many of you are ready for the sunshine? Me too. Yeah, all right. So we'll try to will that to come our way. Everybody put their energy towards sunshine. Where's everybody today? Am I missing a few folks?
Probably traffic.
Oh, I heard traffic was pretty bad today. Yeah, so maybe we should wait just a few minutes to get started. We got some important stuff to do today. I want everybody to catch on to it. So let's talk about something else. How about basketball? Anybody going to the games? You guys, what happened to the campus spirit? Seriously, our team is ranked where? 9. That's top 10 basketball. It's been a while since University of Houston has been in top 10. And you know, last year they made a good run in the... How many of you just don't care about this at all? All right, a lot of you don't. That's too bad. Darn. Well, at least you should go over to the new facility and see it. It's really nice. It's open. Yes, it's open.
They had the ring ceremony there.
They had a what ceremony?
They had the class ring ceremony there.
Oh, they did? Okay, so you saw it?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I think it's great. All right, we'll switch gears. How many of you watched the Grammys? You watched a little. Nobody watched the Grammys? All right, hold on, let me back up. How many of you have cable? 2 of you, 3 of you.
But it was on, was it ABC or CBS?
Okay, so you didn't need cable to watch it, right? How many of you thought the clothes were a little out there? How many of you didn't see the clothes? Okay, you guys are just, I don't know how to talk to you anymore. All right.
Virtual self got robbed.
Who got robbed?
The dance music Grammy, it went to Dua Lipa and Diplo. They should have gone to virtual self.
Oh, I thought the same thing, Matthew. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea what you're talking about. You guys were like, really? He saw you? You watched that? Yeah. Who's the country western singer that won it all? Wasn't she country western? Casey Musgraves, right? Didn't she win a bunch? I thought she did. How many of you have listened to her music?
How did she win if none of them?
Somebody sing something, what she does. Ian, you going to sing it?
No,
Oh.
I just kind of saw it offhand.
Oh, do you know who she is?
No.
Oh,
Isn't she going to be at the rodeo?
that makes me feel better. Is she going to be at the rodeo? How many of you go to the rodeo? Really? How many of you don't go to the rodeo and are kind of proud of the fact that you don't go to the rodeo? Yeah. I got dragged to the rodeo last year. Last year was a big year for me. I got dragged to the rodeo and I got dragged to Ren Fair.
Should have gone to Barbarian Weekend.
What kind of weekend?
They have Barbarian Weekend. That's when
Yeah, I just don't ever want to miss that. No, I'm not. I promise you I will never go back to Ren Fair. That's something I don't ever. That was just a wasted 7.5 hours of my life. Driving out there and going and coming back. The rodeo, I think I'm going to get dragged to again this year, but I'm not going to see anybody out there. I just get dragged around. But that's going to be the end of my rodeo days too. This is my last, I can feel it, this is it. I told them last year, I said, wait, do they take one-armed men at the rodeo? And they said, what are you talking about? I said, because that's all I'm going to have left by the time you drag me out there. No, I don't understand the point of Ren Fair. Sorry, folks, for those of you that do. When I first walked in, I thought, okay, this is cool. Somebody did a lot of cool things. They put together an event. This looks fun. Obviously, it's been successful. I get that. But every time I turned a corner, it was the exact same thing. It was the same people selling the same stuff with the same food. And I thought, I could have done this in about 18 minutes and been out of here. So that's my take on Ren Fair. Not that you care, I'm just sharing that with you. Rodeo, kind of the same thing. You get some rides. If you guys are still eating foot-long corny dogs, we got a lot more serious things to talk about your judgment and your decision-making skills than I thought. So I don't know. But I do, the music I don't go to see at the rodeo anymore. I went one time years ago. But I don't, my personal thing is I don't like the way the animals are treated prior to the music. Right? I mean, my feeling is I mean, somebody that goes out there and takes that rope and put it around a little calf and yank its head, that doesn't work for me. Because I want the guy that does that or the lady that does that to go out there and let somebody put that rope around their neck and yank it. And just kind of say, I'm big on empathy. Say, how would you like that? Say, I don't think anybody would like that. And then they say, well, it doesn't hurt him. I go, really? Well, let's try it on you and see if it doesn't hurt. So that's kind of my thing. Everybody's got their own thing. That's just my thing. So how many of you will go to the rodeo? How many of you go for the rides? How many of you go for the food? How many of you go for the shopping? Really, that great big shopping joint. It's like the Astrodome. How many of you go for the music? What do you go for?
The animals.
Oh, you go for the animals. To see them. Or the roping. Both. Yeah. Yeah. Now, listen, a lot of people enjoy that. A lot of people go out. That's great. It's just not my thing. I got a funny story, but it'll bubble up, but I'll tell you some other time. All right, I think we've semi-filled up. You guys made it. I know traffic was kind of bad, so we held off. I was entertaining them or boring them, depending on your perspective. All right, so I would encourage you to go to a basketball game, although I think they're sold out between now and the end of the year. If the team's really good, if you're not, watch it on TV, but go check out the stadium. It's very cool. They did a nice job with that, so it's good. All right, how's parking this semester? Any better? Is it better? Okay. Yeah, a little sunshine on that helps, right? We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it'll continue to get better as you guys are here. Campus is looking good. How many of you take the train into campus? You take the train? You do? Yeah, that's good. And who drives the furthest to get here? Where do you come from?
I come from Fallbrook.
It's so far away you don't even know where it is.
I drive like an hour and a half to get over here.
An hour and a half.
Morning time.
Tell me where. Help me. Where'd you say? Fallbrook? Hold on.
Fallbrook and Boat Lane.
I have no idea where that is. Where's Fallbrook?
Northwest.
It's where?
Northwest. It's about like the restaurant.
Like 290?
But do you know where the horse track is?
Yeah.
Kind of by that area.
I used to go to the weenie dog races. Some people like the rodeo. I like the weenie dog races. Listen, if you've never seen a weenie dog race, you are missing out on a big part of life. This is so cool. When they put that thing of those little dogs start going down there. Oh my God, it's hysterical. I thought I was going to die the first time I saw that. Yeah, they run the whole track. Yeah. Oh, it's great. And I tell you, my favorite dog these days is a Chiweenie. Have you seen a Chiweenie? Those are the sweetest dogs ever. And I used to have a Dalmatian little guy, not a big little guy, big guy named Leon. If you want to get closer to Leon, his ashes are in my office. But anyway. Hey, man, that dog was a big part of my life. He was great. He's not going anywhere. And but Chiweenies. Yeah, somebody was going to say something. Stephanie?
I have a munchkin cat, so she's kind of like a weirdo, but she's a cat. She's got like little legs.
Yeah?
She's just like a weirdo, but
A munchkin cat?
it's hilarious.
That
You would love it.
really? Well, I don't know. I'm not a cat person. How many of you like cats?
Everybody gets that if I've met her. Her
I
name's
like
Churro.
Churro? I love churros.
That doesn't like cats, likes her.
Okay.
She's a dog.
Little bitty weenie cat. Little bitty legs. They go like this. My daughter has a French bulldog. Yeah, he's cute. But they're kind of built funky. I mean, like their legs won't reach the ground, so they got to sit. That dog sleeps. Am I right?
Yeah, I babysit a French dog.
Yeah.
Bring it over to her house every so often.
Oh.
And like has to like sit.
Yeah, sideways. First time I saw the dog, I said, that's a manufacturing defect. I said, how can you do that? And then they have a beanbag chair, and that dog sleeps upside down in the beanbag chair with his little legs sitting up, head and blood rushing to its head. I'm like, this is nuts. How does that dog live like this? And there are other things I can't tell you about, but it's funny. But I may have to, send me a picture. Show me a picture of that. I got to see this. I've never heard of that. A munchkin cat? Never heard. Anybody heard of that before? Raise your hand if you've heard of a munchkin cat before. What do they call them, munchkins from the Wizard of Oz? That seems somewhat insensitive now that I think about it. But I'm, an impolitically correct cat. All right, I got to think that through. Cats are interesting. I've never been a cat person. I had a close encounter with a cat one time. A girl I was dating, she had a cat that was exceptionally jealous. And every time I'd walk in the door, the cat would be like, "Are you back?" And I'm like, dude, we can find a way to peacefully coexist. But it didn't work out. She kept the cat. I'm like, okay, I kind of. How many of you have had that, like with a significant other and a pet that was pretty intense relationship? I'm going to write a book about women and dogs, though. Those are abnormal relationships. Do you agree? How many of you have a dog? And how many of you think like the dog is just everything you've ever wanted in life and more? Okay. And you would take the dog over a relationship, over a significant other any day of the week. Raise your hand. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, some guys raise their hands too. That's about right. Yeah, okay. Equality is big these days. All right. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, I want to see a picture of this munchkin. And I found something out yesterday, too. You guys, Valentine's Day is coming up, right? 14th. I'm not a big believer in Valentine's Day either, just so you know. Don't like the rodeo, don't like Valentine's Day. I'll tell you something I do like here in a minute when I can figure it out. But I'm a big believer that every day should be Valentine's Day, right? If you need one day to tell somebody that you love them, I think you're in the wrong relationship. Just a thought. But yeah, Ian's going, what? Yeah.
My girlfriend eats it up.
Your girlfriend loves that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you got to buy flowers. You got to do all these things. And by the way, ladies, equality is equality. You need to send flowers too. You need to do all that stuff, right? Right? Yeah. How many of you like to have the door open for you? Some guys want to raise their hand. He doesn't raise his hand. Yeah. My nieces, my nephews, I'm like, get yourself out there and open the door. You do. You open the door. Man, if I went with my father someplace and there was a lady and I didn't open the door, there's no telling what my life would be like. You got to open the door for them. Ladies go first, right? You do all that. I know. Is that still the big deal today, ladies? How many of you like that? How many of you don't care? Really? You don't care? My girlfriend used to not care either, but now she's had it, and if I don't do it now, she's like, she'll wait. Yeah. I'm like, what happened to you don't care? She goes, well, I got over that. I'm like, oh, all right. So yeah, all right. Anyway, something to think about, gentlemen, ladies, equality, lots to think about. All right, so I have bad news and I have good news. I'm glad you asked. So the bad news is my mistake, and I apologize. I totally forgot to ask you, now that we've had our conversation, because we had a very good intensive conversation around franchising, management agreements, management companies, right? You remember? And you did your internal memo, yes, and you posted that. And many of them were very good, some of them not so good. But we had a conversation, and at the end of that class, I was supposed to say, now that we've had this conversation, please revise your internal memo and bring a hard copy to me, because that's the one you want graded, right? Is the revised one? So that was my fault. So, and I know you're working on your ADA inspections and summaries, so can you open up your schedules just really quickly, or you can just listen to it. Spencer's going to change it online. But today we're going to finish up chapter 4 And we're going to start chapter 5 on Valentine's Day. And Spencer's already updated. I want you to turn in a hard copy of your internal memo. All I want is the memo. I don't need a grading sheet. I just want your PeopleSoft number in the top right-hand corner and your memo. One page when you come into class on... Spencer, let's actually give them... No, I apologize. Can you do that by Thursday? Does that give you enough time? Okay. It's a paragraph. But based upon our conversation, right, and your posts, I'm thinking everybody should get a really good grade. But you should understand it. So revise your post, hand it to me. You don't need to revise it online. Everybody good with that? All right. Because of that, though, I'm going to change the due date for the ADA summary and inspection to the following Tuesday instead of Thursday, which gives you another 4 or 5 days. Everybody good with that? Okay. And then remember, on the 21st, we are not having class in here on Career Fair. Now, I expect everybody in this class to go to Career Fair. Spencer, have we got a way to do attendance? At Career Fair?
Yeah, they have.
Will you check with Colleen? Oh, do you know?
Yes, if you swipe your...
You're gonna swipe?
Because I'm in the marketing team.
Okay.
If you swipe your Google card
Okay.
on the very first day and specify what class
Yeah.
you're in, it will
Very good.
kind of be automatic.
Okay, thank you. And you can double dip as far as I'm concerned. If the other classes want you to go, I just need to know, I just want you to go, right? I think it's important that you go. My senior class, the leadership class, if you're in that class, we're not having class, but that's up to you if you decide to go to Career Fair. But if you're in both these classes, you got to go for this class. Got it? All right. Everybody understand the schedule? Everybody know where we're going? Right. So just looking ahead, remember you're going to have Chapter 6 due after that Career Fair. So everybody's good there. All right, so let's come back to contracts, the fundamentals of contracts, because today we're going to wrap up a conversation around contracts, and then starting Thursday, we're going to talk about some very specific contracts. We're going to talk about franchise contracts, management contracts, and meeting and event contracts. You guys now know all about franchising and management companies, right? So we talked about some of the key components of management agreements at the end of class on Thursday. Do you remember what those key components were? Employees. Who owns the data? Remember? All right. So we're going to continue a little bit more time on that. We're going to devote most of our time on Chapter 5 to talk about meeting and event contracts. How many of you want to be in the meeting and event business? Raise your hand. All right. Well, all of you. How many of you want to be in sales? All right. What do the rest of you want to do? Lodging. You'll need to know about contracts. What else? Restaurants. You'll need to know about contracts. Which one? Cruise ships. Contracts? Yeah, a little bit. Queenie, what do you want to do? Restaurant. Okay. Hey, have you guys been out to Crawfish and Noodles? It's a little far out for me, travel-wise. But I went because one of our students has it. Anyway, it's really good if you haven't been. It's... I mean, your GPS will probably tell you better than I can, but it's, is it Bel Air? Out past the Beltway? Is it Chinatown? Yeah. Man, I haven't been out there in a long time. It's really grown up. How many of you go out to Chinatown and hang out on the weekends and stuff? Sometimes, yeah. Okay. No, it's good. And the Chinese New Year was, last year? Last week? It's the year of the... Pig? Anybody, is that your year? Alec, you're a pig? How's it feel?
Pretty gluttonous.
quick. Okay, that was good. Some had their hand up over here. Did you have your hand up? Yes, Jill. Talk about the chapter? Yes, yeah. Yeah, I thought you guys had already done that.
No, you said wait.
Oh. Did you finish them?
You said to wait for this.
Oh, for the beginning of this class? How much progress did you make?
We only had like 3 minutes left.
You had more than that. All right, let's do this. I have a plan. Spencer, there won't be a group post today. Okay? All right. But here we go. In order for an agreement to be enforceable, there has to be 4 what we call elements in the law. 4 characteristics for it to be enforceable. Can somebody tell me what they are? Nobody can tell me what they are. You read the chapter, right?
Is that the one about?
Go ahead.
Is that the one about the offer?
Yes. So between Jalen and Queenie, we're going to get this right? Jalen, you got us started. Queenie, help.
It's legally valid.
It's got to be for a legal purpose.
We should have an offer.
Consideration.
Let's take them. All right, let's get them all out there. There's got to be an offer and an acceptance. You guys put your name tags up. An offer and an acceptance. If I have an offer and an acceptance, what do I have? An agreement. Exactly, Cindy. So if I say to Jill, Jill, I will come mow your yard next week for $15. What have I made? An offer. If Jill says, you can come mow my yard next week for $25, is that an acceptance?
Yes.
No, that's a negotiation.
The acceptance has to mirror exactly the offer. If it doesn't mirror exactly the offer, what do we call that? A counter offer. So Jill has made a counter offer to me. So if I don't respond, do we have an agreement? No. What do we have? We have an offer that was rejected because she made a counter offer. Whenever somebody makes a counter offer, what happens to the original offer? It's rejected. It's no longer on the table. So if I say to Jill, Jill, I'll come mow your yard for $15 next week, and Jill says, you can mow my yard for $25, and I say, no thanks, and Jill says, okay, come mow it for $15, do we have an agreement that I'm going to mow it for $15? Not until I accept it, because by her counteroffer, she rejected my original offer. Do you see that? Okay. Now that happens whether it's verbal or whether it's in writing. So if we had done it via email, it would be the exact same thing. The minute she gave me a counter, my original offer is rejected and she can no longer accept it. So far, so good. The agreement must be what's known as a meeting of the minds. If I say to Rachel, Rachel, I want you to buy this yellow car and I'll sell it to you for $10,000. And Rachel says, I'll pay $10,000 for that green car. Do we have a deal? We don't have a deal, right? It's got to mirror exactly what both sides think. There has to be what we call a meeting of the minds in the law. Okay, so there has to be an agreement. It has to be for a legal purpose. So if I say to Jill, Jill, I'm going to hold, let me think of one. Let's do it differently. Jill, I have a pound of marijuana. that I want to sell you. And it's a great price. I don't know what a pound sells for, and I don't care if you know, don't say it out loud. All right. But if I say to Jill, Jill, I have a pound of marijuana that I'm going to sell to you for $100. Don't anybody act like that's a great price. Just it's been a long time ago. All right. So $100, and Jill says,
I'll buy it for $75.
we're past it, but I want you to agree with me this time.
Okay.
Actually, go ahead. Go ahead and make the counter. Okay, I'll buy it for
I'll buy it for $75.
75. Okay, I'll sell it to you for $75. Do we have an agreement? What am I selling? How much? 1 pound for how much? $75. We have an agreement, right? Okay. Okay. So it's Tuesday when I'm supposed to deliver it, and Jill's like, "Where's my, what do you guys, smoke, whatever it is you guys call that? I'm supposed to go hot boxing with my friends later, and I need it, right? Right. Okay. Not that you would ever do that. But anyway, so Jill and I go, you know what? Somebody came along and offered me $100, so I sold it to them. What does Jill say?
I'll never call you again.
No, Jill might say that, but let's take it a little further. It's a legal community. We had an agreement, right? Is Jill entitled to the marijuana at $75?
Yes. If you accepted it, yes. If not,
Well, I did accept it. We had an agreement, but what's missing, Queenie? It's got to be for a
legal.
legal purpose. Is it legal to sell marijuana in Texas? We're not in California. If it was in Texas, the answer is no, it's not for a legal purpose. Can Jill enforce that agreement?
No.
No. Right? She can't do it. If Chris and I enter into a bet, Chris, I bet that the University of Houston's going to win. No, let's take it out of the college thing. Chris, I'm going to bet that New England is going to beat whoever they play. Yeah, and you're going to tell you, and I'll give you everybody else for $100, right? And so we make that bet, and then New England loses the first game, and Chris says, "Where's my 100?" And I say, "No, I was just kidding." And Chris says, "No," and so Chris tries to enforce it. Did we have an agreement? Well, we had an agreement, but is it for a legal purpose? No. Is gambling on sports legal in Texas? No. So could he enforce that? No. All right. So it has to be for a legal purpose in order to be enforceable. All right. Now, and let me get to one other thing, and then I want to get back to a word that Jalen, right? Used that's very important when it comes to contracts. So there has to be an agreement. It has to be for a legal purpose. And the parties that are agreeing have to be of sound mind. In other words, if Camille is at a bar and somebody comes up to her and they hit it off and he says, "Hey, you want to get married?" And she says, "Sure, why not?" Do they have an agreement? And then, okay, they go find a justice of the peace and they get married. And so the next day, Camille wakes up and goes, "What have I done?" Right? And she goes, "What is it?"
The thing that always happens in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Yeah, another reason not to go to Las Vegas. Right. So, but is that a valid agreement? Why not? Will the court annul that marriage? Yeah, because it was based upon an agreement that might have been valid, right? 2 promises, an offer and an acceptance. It was for a legal purpose, but were the parties of sound mind? Can alcohol, intoxication, or drugs influence people so that they make choices they wouldn't otherwise make? Right? Okay. Could somebody be mentally challenged and be taken advantage of? Right? So courts will not enforce those agreements. Can one party be so overwhelmingly powerful that they can take advantage of a party that's not as powerful? In the personal sphere, when it's a business against a consumer, we often will see that. Business to business, oftentimes courts just assume everybody lawyers up and everybody gets the same benefit of legal guidance. So that power differential typically will not void an agreement. So let that be a lesson to you, right? If I use the term B to C, do you understand what that means? Business to consumer. So are you in a B to C business? Is a hotel a B to C business or a B to B business? B to C. We sell to consumers. Now, we might also sell B to B. Do we have corporate clients? So we might sell some B to B, but we sell to our transient guests B to C. It's important that you understand, are you in a B to C business or are you in a B to B business? Google has a B to B division. They have just sell to businesses, right? They have another division that sells to consumers. But you have to understand there's different laws apply, different contractual laws apply, consumer protection laws apply when you're selling to consumers that oftentimes don't apply to the business contractual relationship. All right. So look, I said there were 4 essential characteristics or elements. We have to have the agreement. You know what that is now. It has to be for a legal purpose. And the parties have to be of sound mind and or over the age of 18, right? They have to be adults. Now, I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Matthew, remind me to talk about under the age of 18 contracts. Will you please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, but Jaylene, what's the other word you mentioned?
Consideration.
Ah, yes. This is the glue that holds contracts together. Consideration. Another word for consideration is, the survey said, you guys not watch Family Feud?
Yeah.
What's the word? No. Value. Value. Consideration, a synonym for consideration is value. Something of value. So, and in enforceable contracts, there has to be mutual consideration. It just cannot flow one way. So in my agreement with Jill to mow her yard, what was the value Jill was getting? Getting her yard mowed, right? What was the value I was getting, the consideration? I was getting paid. Same thing with the marijuana, right? What was the value she was getting? Marijuana. What was the value I was getting? I was getting paid. Does everybody see that? Okay. So if I say to Piper, hey, Piper, I'm going to come to your restaurant and I'm going to clean your restaurant next week. Is that okay with you? Piper's like, sure. Come clean it anytime you want, right? And then I don't go and Piper says, hey, we had a deal. You were supposed to come clean my restaurant. Is that enforceable? What's missing? Wait, did we have an agreement? Yeah. I said, I'm going to clean your restaurant. She said, sure, come clean my restaurant. Was it for a legal purpose? Yeah. Is it anything illegal about cleaning a restaurant? No. Do we have sound minds? We did. Was there consideration value flowing to Piper? She's going to get her restaurant cleaned. Is there any consideration flowing to me? No. Is that an enforceable agreement? No. Right? There has to be mutual consideration. If there's no mutual consideration, what do we call that? Volunteering or a gift. And gifts and or volunteering are not enforceable. See that? I was just offering to do something nice for Piper. If I show, great, she gets advantage of the value. If I don't show, there's nothing she can do about it. If one of your parents says, I'm going to leave this diamond ring to you, and then they don't put it in the will, and you have other siblings, do you get the ring?
No.
Probably not. Unless you get there first, grab it. How many of you go to estate sales? You go to estate sales? People like estate sales. It always kind of creeps me out going to an estate sale. That's what my friend says. It's really good stuff. I said, but you got to wear a dead person's stuff. It's okay. Yeah, some people don't care.
Dead. I mean, sometimes it's like they move. But
That's a fair point. I should just put that in my mind. They're not dead, they moved. Did we talk about this in intro? Did you guys watch, what's the show? The Doctor Show, Grey's Anatomy. Who watches that show?
No.
Did we talk about this last semester?
No.
Speaking of dead. Who's the, McSteamy?
Well, they're both dead.
No, McSteamy died before McDreamy.
I know that.
Oh, okay. So the point of this story is I used to date the costume designer for Grey's Anatomy. And we were going out one time, and she brings me some jeans and a sweater. And she goes, put this on. And I said, what? She goes, put this on. I said, well, how do you know it'll fit? And she goes, what do I do for a living? I went, right, okay, I'll put it on. Perfect fit. Perfect fit. I said, you just have men's clothes in your closet? Just for the odd person that's showing up or something? And she goes, no. And I said, all right, tell me the story. She goes, well, when somebody dies on the show, right, that we can go in and, we have to give stuff away. So I ended up with these. And I said, wait, I'm wearing a dead guy's clothes? And she goes, yeah. And I went, well, you had to take it off. I didn't like that at all. But the funny part was, she goes, and when you come out here and for us to go out, she goes, these are the clothes you wear. She goes, you wear the other clothes you wear when you go out with those girls in Texas. And I said, well, that's not very nice. She goes, that's the deal. I said, okay, deal's on. So I kept the clothes. Let that be a lesson to you. Kept the clothes. All right. You get the rest of it? I kept the clothes. No, never mind. All right. You guys are a little slow today. Did you drink coffee? Did you do anything like that? No? You guys are slow. All right, here we go. So, 4 characteristics for an agreement to be enforceable, right? That makes it an enforceable agreement, enforceable contract. What are they? Start at the top. There has to be an offer and an acceptance, which is one of the characteristics, because that makes it a what? An agreement, a meeting of the minds. Number 2, Jalen, there has to be what? Consideration. What kind of consideration, Joel? Mutual, flowing. There has to be value flowing back and forth, right? It has to be for a legal purpose and sound mind. If you have those, now I'm going to go one step further and tell you it needs to be in writing. Now, in the chapter, there are such things as verbal agreements, but they are nearly impossible to enforce. Remember what I think I mentioned this to you before. If you have it in writing, you have a prayer. If it's verbal, you only have air. Okay. If you make an agreement with somebody, just confirm it with an email. Right? At least do that. And that will at least give you some evidence of what the terms of the contract were. Okay? All right. So now let's talk about Matthew, the underage contractor. So a 17-year-old comes to your hotel and says, I'm going to stay here. Here's my credit card. And I'm going to stay 3 nights. And you don't check their age, and you let them stay, and then when it's over, they say, you know what, I'm not 18, so I'm not of age to make a contract. Therefore, I'm going to tell my credit card company not to honor this charge for those 3 nights. What do you think? If you're the hotel, what do you think? Mo? Anybody? Yeah.
Could the credit card company be liable since they gave him that credit card to use?
Interesting thought. Probably not, though. Interesting thought. I got to think that through, but my first thought is no, because they don't have. That's it. I got to think about that, but I don't think so. Zach, Alec.
Well, this is tackling under his birthday though, because you have to be 18 to get a credit card.
To get a credit card, so but
Nonetheless, your parents being 40.
I don't know. I like where you're going with that. I like the thought, but I don't think you could make that case. I got to think of a legal theory that could get you there. Right? It wasn't fraudulent. They're not saying they're not going to honor the payment. They're saying they're being directed not to honor the payment, right? By their card holder. So I don't think that would get you there. But I like to keep thinking. What else could you argue?
Then it's on the hotel.
That it's what?
It's on the hotel then.
It's on the hotel.
Yeah, because we set up the contract with Abide.
Yeah, okay, but are you just going to cave? The kids stayed in your hotel for 3 days.
I'm not sure what recourse you have.
Well, there's a little recourse in the book. That's where I'm trying to get you to go. I think it's in the book. It's called quantum meruit. It's a little Latin in the law. Quantum, Q-U-A-N-T-U-U-M, quantum meruit, M-E-R-I-U-T, quantum meruit. What does that mean? My language guru in the back, what's that mean? No idea, yeah. Quantum meruit means, it means that,
Quantifiable merit?
well, it's a very good guess. It means that if you received value, then you should pay for it. So if you receive value, then you should pay for it, right? So even though in this instance, the kid might argue, hey, I'm underage, therefore this contract is void, the court might say, I may void the contract, but you got the value of your stay, and you need to pay for that value. That's most often how that would turn out. Quantum meruit. Camille?
If a, totally inebriated person walked into a hotel and gave their credit card,
Yep.
they would still be liable if they stayed that night.
They would still be liable because they got the value of their stay. Right. How many of you have figured out people are normal until they check into a hotel? You got that figured out? Okay, so just keep that in mind and realize that situations are going to come up. And you've got to be very careful about who you rent rooms to, how you charge them. I mean, we got all kinds of scams. How many of you have worked at the front desk before? And how many of you can tell us stories about scams? Can you tell us one?
I was on an internship in Vietnam during the summer. I was a guest relations officer, and we had one lady come in with her son, and she had bought a T-shirt that cost $20, and then she reported it missing from her room. And when we offered to check the security cameras for her to make sure that no one came in her room without her knowing, she refused.
Yeah.
She wanted to upgrade to a 5-star hotel. She
Ah.
wanted free taxi fares to and from the airport, and she also wanted, I think it was a free dinner.
All over the $20 T-shirt that she said was missing.
And then at one point she refused to talk to any of our front desk officers because she said we were irresponsible, and she wanted to talk to the manager of the hotel. And the vice president had to come down and talk directly to her, so it was a fun ride.
Yeah. There's scams. There are all kinds of scams. What's been going on lately is they'll call around to the guest rooms at like 5 in the morning and wake guests up, and they'll say, "Hey, hello, Mr. Barth, this is the front desk. Look, I'm so sorry to disturb you, but we see if you're checking out today, we just wanted you to know our credit card system is down, and we want to be sure that we have your portfolio ready to check out, but I need your credit card number to be able to do that. Would you mind giving it to us so there's no delay upon your checkout?" And see, so if I'm like, "Wait, I'm not checking out today," click, they hang up, right? And then they'll just dial around. And so you've got to be mindful of that, and you've got to realize that that could happen to your guests. It doesn't happen as much anymore because the phone systems have become a little more sophisticated. But some places still have systems where you dial in and it will say, if you know the room number, right, hit the number and it'll dial that extension of the room so you can dial it directly. But it's really interesting what's going on scam-wise. You've got to be careful. Restaurants too. How many of you have been scammed at a restaurant before? Yeah, what happened in the back?
I was bartending out in San Antonio, and to open the tab, I had a guest who gave me a card that eventually got declined, but then he went to the bathroom and left, but he had ordered like 42 shots, like back to back. And
42 shots.
I mean, it's a 1942, so Don Julio tequila. It's
Thank you.
Julio
Okay.
blend.
Okay.
And
See where I was going with 42 shots.
he
Yeah.
got pretty drunk, and he left to the bar. He got closed out when I come back to the bathroom, and he never came back. And we tried to, check the card, and it declined. But it seems like it happens a lot when you open the tab. It doesn't originally decline until you put through transfer.
It's not like at a hotel where they authorize the tab. Yeah.
Because it's supposed to enforce to make sure you have your card on file, but a lot of times it does get declined.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Ron?
I just from like the more of a consumer standpoint, one of my friends got his credit card number stolen at a restaurant because the bartender bought this little like magic reader off of Amazon because you can buy them for $100, and they come with like 100 different blank cards. And so like you just swipe someone's credit card and it can fit in like your apron, and then like it reads your credit card number and then you can store it on one card so you can use it. And so yeah, so like my friend was one of like 50 people that got like this credit card.
Thanks for making us feel good about life.
Yeah. It's like literally like it was like a couple weeks later we just like looked it up on Amazon and you can buy it.
Yeah, they call those skimmers.
Yeah.
They used to be plugged into the ATMs, but now they're getting so micro they can put them on there. That's why when you travel outside the U.S., your card never leaves your site, never leaves the table. They bring the mobile swipe to your table. Here, we're slow to catch on to that. So not that that would stop it. It sounds like that's,
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I like saw it like on the video.
Yeah.
Plug it into your laptop and you have like all these credit cards.
yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the scam is out there, and we get things like, I need to check in. I'm going to come to Jimmy's hotel, and I'm going to check in, Jimmy, and you're at the desk, and I go, "Hey, Jimmy, I'm traveling, and I lost my credit card. Are you okay can you call my wife, and she'll read you the card number over the phone?" I like the way he's got that red flag going up. I like that.
Probably not.
Yeah. It's a tough one, right? Because don't we take credit card information online? If somebody calls us before they check in and gives us a credit card number, don't we check in? And if it validates, right?
I don't know if that matters in this situation. But
Ask again, what?
if you lost it, why would your wife have it?
Yeah, maybe she's got a duplicate card. Yeah, the number. It's interesting, all the stuff that's going on. And you guys you need to be mindful of it. And if something's out of the ordinary, you need to stop and think about it. How many have ever been in the experience of a quick change artist? Have you ever had that happen? Yeah. Yeah. It's,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
oh
I
yeah.
remember now. It happened like 3 times. Yeah.
Well, that may not be such a good thing.
So the place that I work, people know that it's like money there, so they come in and all kinds of things happen. And yeah, the first time it happened to me, I was kind of like, wait, what the hell
Yeah, while it was going on.
Yeah, and it happened a couple more times, but yeah.
Okay, Rachel, did have, yeah.
Well, okay, they say, hey, can I get change for like 100 or 50 or 20? And you're like, okay, just give me a second. And usually they're rushing, and so they give you the money, and then while you're getting the change, they're like, hey, I gave you more than that. Like they'll give you 20, but they say they gave you a 50, and they're like, oh, you only gave me $1 or some crazy, and they'll flip the bill like so quick that you don't even know. It's like, wait, but I didn't hand you that.
They're trying to confuse you, and so from your perspective, what you should do if you're dealing with cash on a regular basis is you never put the bill they gave you into its slot until you've given the change and the transaction is complete. That way they can't say, well, hey, I gave you a 20, right, when they really gave you a 10. But they will also say, they'll come up and they'll buy something really small, and they'll give you a 20. And then they see when you open the drawer and you're counting the change, they'll go, oh, by the way, while you're in there, can I change this 20 because I need some ones, right? And it happens so quickly, and before you know it, you've probably given, then they'll say, wait, can I get that 20 back, right? And then you don't know if you've given the ones, you don't know if you've given the 20, you don't know, but they are really crafty.
It's quick, yeah.
Reggie, you had it happen?
Yeah, I've had it happen multiple times.
Yeah?
From a leadership point of view. They'll target.
At Chick-fil-A?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They'll target either people that look like they're in training.
Yes.
Or younger team members. And so oftentimes you have to watch out for that. And then sometimes they'll have two people and they'll distract the manager while they're talking to the team member.
To the team member, they do that. Yeah, you got to be careful today. It's tough, yes. It's
There's this girl I know. who's
Mary.
Really kind of sketchy.
She's a good friend.
No, but she's like in the scene of people I know in Houston, kind of like art music scene. And I have like a vintage pop-up shop, and I had an item that she wanted to buy. And so she's like a con artist, honestly.
Sure, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, all of these scams.
So she acts like she's my friend every time I see her, and I'm trying to help me. But I'm getting like anxiety and horrible vibes every time I see her too, And so she puts on this jacket that she wants, and she won't take it off. It's worth like $100, but she convinced me that to give it to her for $50.
Yeah?
And then she's like, but I don't have cash on me today. I can pay you tomorrow, and I can pay you on Apple Pay right now. And she like pulls up her Apple Pay and acts like she's paying me, but then I never get the message. It's like she's such a con artist.
Yeah.
She makes me think that she's doing something
Yeah.
that she's not. She just thought no. Oh my God, that's crazy.
It's easy to say that after the fact. It's hard to do it in the moment.
When you're on the spot by someone like that who's like a master con artist, they make you feel like crazy, and like if you call them out, they're gonna make you look crazy to everyone else. And it's really hard to like stand up for yourself. It's weird. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She's having post-traumatic stress at the moment. Yeah.
It's like the next day though, she was gonna pay me, and I went to meet her, and she, oh my gosh, she's like, all I have is $100 bank, and I'm like, okay, you can give me like 2 of your 20s. I see it right there. And she's like, no, I can't do that because I need this. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
I'm a server too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Got to pay.
So I'm kind of just like
Yeah, listen, the moral of that story is you get your money up front.
Yeah, don't trust people.
No, don't say that. I think it's important to trust. But at the same time, trust but verify. Get your money up front, right? That's law school 101. Get your money up front. Yeah.
In restaurants, but I saw at a restaurant that I used to work at, this one bartender, when you would see someone pay cash, for instance, cash is out, let's order 3 margaritas, and for some reason people get lazy. They don't want to they don't want to do the calculations themselves and see how much 3 margaritas is. So the bartender will say the cash, and then he'll lie. Oh, it's $25. Even if it was probably 15 or 12, and then he'll just give $25 and then he'll pocket that. And this actually happens more frequently than you expect.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, people take advantage of you for sure. You've got to be mindful of that. Okay. You understand now what it takes to have an agreement enforceable, right? Okay. So let's take that information now and let's apply it to the post that you were working on, your reservation agreement. First, Is a reservation at a hotel an enforceable contract? Why? Why? Say it. Okay, something in writing doesn't, but it helps. We have evidence. The writing is evidence. It's not one of the elements, but it helps, no doubt. Ron?
It meets all these characteristics.
Tell me about that. How does it meet the characteristics? Yep.
I'll just say, like,
Oh.
as Mission-Star restaurants, like, if you go, because they're so expensive, like, if you don't cancel your reservation in a certain amount of time, they charge you, like,
The restaurants are starting to do, look, airlines started non-refundable or, cancellation fees. Hotels were slow to catch on, but now everything's paid up front with a cancellation clause, right? And now restaurants are starting to do it as well. And in my opinion, they should, because it ruins it for everybody else. The people that call, make a reservation, don't cancel timely. Other people couldn't go and enjoy it. And here's the thing. Can reliance on a promise be valuable? In other words, in the hotel and restaurant business, this is an important point. Typically, when we think of value, we think about money, right? We think about a car, or we think about, in this marijuana we talked about, right? There's value going back and forth, right? But if I promise to hold a meeting, tell me your name.
Oh,
Anthony. If I promise to hold a meeting at Anthony's hotel, and I promise to pick up 100 room nights over certain days, what is Anthony not going to do? Ariana, he's not going to sell those rooms in reliance upon what? My promise. So if I don't pick up the rooms, right? And Anthony comes to me and says, hey, you owe me for those 100 rooms. Did we have an enforceable agreement?
If you have it in writing, yes.
Well, or I can prove it verbal, but typically in writing. But why do we have an enforceable agreement? Do we have an agreement?
Yes.
Mutual consideration? What was it? I promise to pay. What's the consideration coming back to me? I will have the rooms, right? And so additional consideration for Anthony is that, but wait, I relied to my detriment on his promise to pick up these rooms. We call it detrimental reliance. I relied upon that, right, in order to hold these rooms and not sell them to anybody else. And courts typically will force you to pay. It's the same thing with Mary. Mary relied to her detriment on the promise of her customer to pay her tomorrow, right? So she didn't sell the jacket to anybody else. She held the jacket for, not changing the facts up a little bit. I know she did, I know, but I'm holding it up. If Mary had held it though, and then the lady didn't come back and pay her, and Mary gave up 3 other opportunities to sell it, do you see how she relied upon the promise to come back and buy it to her detriment? Right? She could have sold it to somebody else. So detrimental reliance can also be consideration and value. Everybody good? All right, so let's get to the post scenario. Let's just generally talk, because I do agree with you. It is an agreement. I promise to buy a hotel room tomorrow night for $125, right? Consideration, I'm going to get the room, you're going to get the money. Everybody get that? Is it for a legal purpose?
Yes.
Yes. Are we of sound mind?
Yes.
Legal capacity, that's what we call that. Do they have the requisite capacity to contract? Right? Yeah. We're of age. Nobody's drunk. We make the deal. Right? There's no fraud involved. We make the deal. Okay. Now, I don't show up. What's the deal? If I don't show up, what happened? Who breached the contract? I breached the contract, right? Breach means violate. I violated the agreement that we had. I did not fulfill my obligation, right? Because I said I was going to come, stay, and pay. And you relied to your detriment on that promise because you didn't rent the room out. Fair? So are you entitled to the money? Yes. Now, how do hotels modify our agreements? They do it with cancellation clauses, right? And for the most part, they're pretty generous. If you don't cancel by 4 p.m. on the day of, right, we're going to charge your credit card, one-night room, and tax, which is pretty generous. If I have a 5-night stay and they're only going to charge me for one night, that's actually pretty generous for the consumer, right? Okay. Does everybody see that and get that? Now, hotels are getting a little savvy. They're starting to say, you prepay, but it's a non-refundable, and we'll give you a discount, right? But they can book that money, and they know they get it no matter what happens. And a lot of hotels are hoping you don't show, because then they do what? And they sell it in. Look, don't kid yourself. A lot of hotels have gotten rich on no-shows, whether it's on meetings. We'll talk more about that, but typically on transient guest rooms as well. But so everybody understands that that's a reservations contract. Now, what is a hotel? Let's shift it a little bit and bring it back to the Post, and let's bring our ethics conversation into the conversation and connect those dots. Now you're in the hotel, and you've got a group coming in, but you're trying to sell out, right? How many of you worked in hotels? What are you trying to do each and every night? Sell out. Why are we trying to do that? Well, what do we call that? Perishability, right? If I don't sell that room today, I'm never going to collect that money again. I'll never be able to sell it. It's not like a lawnmower. Okay, so what? I'm trying to sell out, but what if I sell too many rooms? What do we call it in the industry? We're overbooked, and that makes we're going to walk somebody. Walking used to be literally walk them to the hotel, across the street. But today, it could be 40 miles away if it's convention. You want to have real fun? Be on an island when a hurricane comes in. And planes can't take off, but planes come in with new people. The last planes come in, but they can't leave with people that are already on the island. So you've already got a full hotel. But now you've got 500 guests that just showed up wanting their reservations. What do? So there aren't any other hotel rooms. What would you do? Can't cry, that doesn't help.
You enforce the reservation, so if the guests that were already in the hotel were due out that day, you have to enforce the fact that they didn't reserve that night and they have to leave.
That's the legal thing to do. I agree with you completely. Their reservation expired. But are you really going to throw them out in a hurricane on an island?
That's what happened in downtown Houston.
It is what happens, and then they get taken to task on social, right? But it happens, and those are that's why you get paid money, to make those choices and make those decisions. It's challenging. You bring all the pool chairs into the lobby, and you bring out sheets, and you have people sleep. You ask people if they'll share rooms with strangers. Your employees take people home. You do all kinds of things. And you do your best to accommodate. It's really an interesting time in life. But I think from a legal perspective, Camille hit the nail on the head. Legally, those people that their reservation expired, they need to go. And you need to honor the reservations of the people coming in, right? But it's hard to do that. And we see it happen with the hurricanes as well. It's challenging. Okay, so let's get back to my ethical situation. So now, let's say you have 100 rooms at your hotel, right? This half of the room owns the hotel. This half of the room You guys are business travelers wanting to stay at this hotel. You've got 100 rooms. You overbook it to 110. You've got a cancellation policy by 4 o'clock the day up. You make a reservation. Got it? You show up, you stay the night, you pay for the room, everybody's happy. Yes, 99% of the time that's the way it works. But that 1% of the time, you guys show up and they don't have a room for you. They're going to walk you. What do we get when we get walked, typically? Typically you get a free night at a place, and then we're going to bring you back the next day if you've got a multiple night stay, right? Which is it's relatively generous, but does the business traveler care about getting a free night? Somebody else is paying for it anyway. What's important to the business traveler? Sleep, get a room, right? So that's one challenge we have, which is we don't handle that very well. But why do we walk the guest in the first place, Camille? Because we don't have a room. But why? What's the purpose of walking them? Tell me, Ian.
Keep their loyalty.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're trying to. What are we doing? Who breached the agreement? We did. So we're offering that walk, that other guest room, as a remedy, right? We're just not going to push you out on the street. Why not? We breached the agreement. We're going to lose if they sue us, and we're going to lose potentially damages. We could lose attorney's fees. There's a lot we could lose. So we're trying to head that off at the pass by saying what? I'm really sorry. We don't have a room. We made a mistake. We don't have a guest room for you, but we have made arrangements for you here. The best walks occur when you let people know ahead of time. The worst walks occur when the manager is sitting back there and pushes the new front desk agent to go up and says, you go tell them we don't have any rooms. I'll be back here in case you need anything. Did you have your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that some hotels you can walk your guests to will sometimes charge a fine expense because you walk the guests to them.
What kind of expense?
They call it kind of like a fee, basically, for them, for you walking a guest to them. And I know that at the Med Center, they all charged about $500 plus the hotel. Yeah, an insane amount of money, which is basically...
Well, now, this is done up front. If there's a contract that says that, typically now businesses will make those agreements. They'll say, hey, Hilton, we're going to take 100,000 guest rooms, but we want a no-walk policy for our, if I'm Google, if they're coming for business and you walk them, it's going to be $500 in addition to the free night. Because they're trying to disincentivize the hotel from walking their, walk somebody else. Don't walk my people. Yeah, but that's not going to happen in the typical consumer situation. Now, you can argue and you can negotiate. You don't have to accept what the hotel offers, right? They're the one that breached the agreement. The problem is, if you walk away without anything, because the hotel might get to the point and go, dude, you're on your own. We tried to be reasonable. Do what you can. Well, then you may have to try to sue them and try to collect, and that is challenging. Yep. Why would it be challenging? You may not live in the city, right? So you have to come back here to sue them. And what else might be an issue, Jordan? What else could be an issue? Yeah, whenever you make a reservation online, what are you agreeing to? Their terms and conditions of use. And how many of you read those? Nobody does, right? But those terms and conditions specify where litigation will be held and take place. So it could be Delaware. Could be Utah. Well, if you're in Houston, are you going to go to Delaware and Utah to sue somebody over a $125 room rate? Probably not. Do you see how it works? So hotels know that, so they walk them. It's a generous thing to do. They do it up front, but at the same time, we breach the agreement, so shouldn't we be generous? Okay, let's change the facts up a little bit. You've got 100 rooms. And let's say that you sell, how do I do this? Hold on. You got 100 rooms. You sell 105 rooms, right? You overbook by 5. So 5 of these people have reservations. They don't cancel, they don't show. 100 people show. You sell out the hotel. 100 rooms, 100 occupied, 100 paid for. 5 people over here don't cancel, don't show. What do? You charge 5 people no-shows. How do you justify that?
They make a reservation in the agreement. If they didn't show up, you would have given them a room somewhere.
But you wouldn't have given them, you would have breached the agreement. Could you fulfill your obligation under the contract? No, they didn't. Who breached first? If they had shown up, would you have had a room for them under the contract? No. The hotel, when the hotel oversells, the hotel is breaching those room contracts over and above the capacity that the hotel has. Now, hoteliers will argue like crazy that's not the case, but I'm telling you that's the case. And you can see it clearly, right? And the hotels don't want you to think that because they want to charge for no-shows even though they sell out. They think they're entitled to that money. Ethically, are they entitled to that money? No. No. You're not entitled to that money for 2 reasons. What's the first one? The first one is because had the guest shown up, could you have fulfilled your obligation under the agreement? No. The second reason is what? In order to recover damages under a contract, you have to have suffered damages. Well, in this case, did you suffer damages? You sold out the hotel. Now, you might argue that with revenue management. But wait, my last 5 rooms were at a 125 rate. Your reservation was at a 175 rate, right? So you would argue I'm entitled to what? An additional 50. And I might let that pass, but I would argue, but wait, you would have the expense of walking me, right? So I really saved you that expense. Do you see? But look, you're going to get out, you're going to work for hotels, and they're going to tell you charge them. And you're going to have to decide if you want to do that. I'm sharing with you that legally it's not the right thing to do. Ethically, it's not the right thing to do. And just because something makes money doesn't make it the right thing to do. I hope all of you have figured that out. Yeah? But I'm not saying, but you have a choice to make. Everybody's got to make their own choices. I can tell you that hoteliers hate it when I teach them this. Because they made a ton of dough doing this. But what's another way to handle it? Could I send you a letter instead? Could I send the folks over here a letter and say, hey, Chris, we had you down for a reservation and we don't believe we received notice of cancellation. And here's our cancellation policy. You'll see we typically are supposed to charge you one night room and tax. Please note in this instance, we were able to sell your room. And so we're not going to charge you. But in the future, please know if you don't abide by our cancellation policy, we will have to charge your credit card. Now, what have I done by that? I've created probably exceptional loyalty, right? Plus, I've reinforced my policy. And I've done the lawful thing, and I've done the ethical thing. Right? And look, is it worth $125 to alienate Chris, who's been a good customer? No, it's not. It'll cost you 10 times that to get a new customer. Right? So think about the long-term investment rather than the short-term gain. How about this? How about you only sell 98 rooms and 5 people don't show, don't cancel? Which ones do you charge? Yes, you use criteria to establish who you charge, right? You're going to charge the OTA customers, right? I find that to be problematic as well, but I got to think it through. Because everybody had the same agreement, right?
Well, actually with OTAs, there's a different agreement, is that in their fine print, their reservation isn't actually guaranteed at their hotel, nor is their room type.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like running the house, but also like OTAs, if the guest cancels with the OTA, like, so, or they cancel with us, sometimes the OTA will cancel, or like, they'll cancel the card that we have on file because it's like a single-use card. So a guest doesn't show up and they cancel the card, but like without us being able to charge that cancellation policy. So there's shady stuff that happens.
Shady. Shady, shady. The OTA, it injects a third party into it. And then here's what typically happens. If you have a problem at the hotel, what would the hotel say? Talk to the OTA. And what do you say back to that? You say what? Can't you call? I'm going to share with you what I would say, and what I have said is, I'm not calling the OTA. I stayed at your hotel. You made the representations. If you got a problem with the OTA, you call the OTA. But you and I are going to solve this right now. And that's the deal. And that's the legal aspect. And they're going to argue, well, I don't care. We're staying right here. And we're going to solve this. And that's what they should do. And any hotel that's worth its salt should stand up and honor whatever their representations were. They should never push back a customer to go to an OTA. Or they should get on the phone with the OTA and solve it for you. That's customer care. Yeah. It's challenging. It's interesting what's going on out there. Okay, contracts. Got it? Got the fundamentals? Okay. All right. So, wait. Chapter 5 for Thursday, right? You'll have a post due Wednesday. And remember, I want your hard copy of your internal memo turned in Thursday morning. Everybody good? Go. Have a great weekend. Week.